Hello there, people of the internet. It's Thursday, which means we get together and we talk about robots and trading systems. And lately, we've been talking about trend following. So much trend following talk, but I had so much information, so it's worth it, right? Please say it's worth it. I hope it's worth it. Today, we're going to talk about how trend following, big surprise, turns 10,000 into 37,000. We've been talking a lot about concepts. Let's talk about what trend following can do and how to do it. All right, three things we're going to talk about in today's video. We're going to talk about index funds again. They are easy. They're easy to put in. They're easy to implement. They're easy to get in your life. They're easy to understand. And they're recommended by the smartest people ever. So we have to keep talking about index funds. Do you understand? We have to, because if you don't do anything, index funds are way better. They're the best option for people who don't have any options. Got it? So index funds are super easy. Is trend following hard? Number two, we're going to talk about, has trend following needed any adjustments? Okay, great. I understand trend following, but what do you mean? And don't you have to change it all the time? Find out. And we're going to give an example of trend following success. We're going to turn, as I said, 10K into 37K. Okay, back to index funds. I was having a conversation the other day, a few days ago, with one of my old tennis students, and she was asking me about investing. Now, she's super smart, but doesn't have any idea about investing, like a lot of people, like me back in the day. She's very curious, though, on how money can make money, aren't we all? And so we were having a discussion on what would you do if you started from scratch like her? If you have a little money on the side, what do you do? How do you get that money making money? Well, big surprise. Index funds are the first thing that probably should come up in any conversation like this. It's the market. If the market goes up, you win. It's safe, quote unquote safe, if you think a 50% plus drop in your money is safe. Ugh. But it's safe because you're buying the whole market, so you're very diversified. I guess safe would have to be in quotes. I don't think that's safe, but well, I don't think it's any safer. Yes, it's safe. Let's be very clear. It's as safe as anything can be when you're investing. Fine. That's done. So all you'd have to do to get an index fund is go to Vanguard.com, it's right there on the screen, and pick a fund that's an index related and that's cheap. The one I talk about all the time, the one I track on a monthly basis is VFINX. Okay, so go buy that one. It's easy and you're done forever. Just leave your money there. You can add to it, but don't take it out unless you want to have that index fund pay for your annual bills. You have a big sum in there, and you say, well, I make 20% this year, I'm taking that money out, I'm going to pay bills, and I'm going to start again from scratch. That's fine. But if you just want straight money growing, buy an index fund and put it in. And that's it. Yes, it's a hassle, I guess, to see Vanguard.com and to talk to somebody. It's not much of a hassle, though, right? That's it. So if you're starting from scratch, there it is. You are done. Good luck. Have a great time. I hope you make a bunch of money. But what does that actually give you in numerical terms? Well, if you started in 2008, because that's a 10-year period, so that's why I like to start in 2008. Plus, we all know what 2008 was, right? The worst year of our lifetimes, potentially, probably. If you started index funds, VFINX, in 2008, $10,000, right now you'd be sitting on, as I speak, about $18,000. Not bad, right? It's not bad. It's easy and it makes money. So, is trend following hard? Well, trend following, as far as easiness goes, is not far behind. We've talked about it on my podcast, in the weekly newsletter that comes out on Wednesdays, and on their YouTube Thursday videos. We've talked about the turtles. The turtles are probably the most famous trend followers ever. They made over $100 million for their owners slash creators back in the 1980s. Know how much money that is now? A lot more. And the rules have been out there on the internet for a long time. The rules that they used to be a trend follower have been online and available for everyone for a long time. I have posted them before. I linked to it in the weekly newsletter yesterday. Google Turtle Rules. They're out there. Guess what? They're not changing. No one's updating these. It's not a Google Doc. It's an old doc. Those rules are there, and they've been there. So if you're not familiar, take a few minutes and go study. Just get a rough idea of how to be a trend follower, turtle style. Okay, I'll wait. All right, got it? Excellent. Now let's take those rules and make them even easier. The turtles love to add to positions, and they have this little formula. It's a percentage of n, which is their unit size, and that part gets confusing. I'll grant you that. So we're not going to do that. Okay, we're not going to add to positions. We're going to take one position, and that is it. So we just made it easier. Furthermore, the turtles, if you read your little rules, they don't take every trade because they realize in their heads, well, you don't get big winners every time. So if we get a winner, we're not going to take the next trade because it's probably a loser. Ha! And then we'll take the next trade after that. Well, I find that to be very arbitrary. Here's a little sidebar. Any rule that sounds like that, well, I don't particularly like this particular seasonality, for example, or it seems like it loses. I won't do the second trade, whatever. Those mathematically have never worked out for me in all of the hours I spent testing systems, which is just about every single day. So I don't like that rule. I think it's arbitrary. Now, is it just my opinion? No. I researched it, and in most of the trend following systems I've found, there are back-to-back winners that you would lose, and you'd end up making less money over a long period of time. Now, I think I found one, maybe two, that work better when you skipped a trade, but that's a long-winded explanation to say, listen, let's not have this discussion at all. Let's take every trade, and if we get two winners in a row, haha, we'll be there. And if not, so we take a loser. We're used to that. So there you go. Turtle rules, got it? Unchanging turtle rules. Almost 40 years, nothing's changed, except we made it easier. No adding to positions, and we take every trade. That's it. That's pretty darn easy, right? I know it's not necessarily buying an index fund and then never doing anything again, but it's pretty easy. If you're using a daily chart, or even a weekly chart, but let's say a daily chart, and you know that you're going to get in when price breaks above the last 55 bars, right? Turtles talked about that, break above 55 bars for their entry number 2. They also broke above the 20, right? Anyway, if you put a buy stop, let's use the long one, and 55 bars. So 55 days. All you got to do is look back on your chart, 55 bars, what's the high, and then put an order in above that. And then you're done until it takes the trade. How hard is that? Does that take 5 minutes? 2 minutes? 36.8 seconds? Right? It's not hard. Then you have to put a stop loss in. You can put that in ahead of time, though. So now we're up to 46.2 seconds. And you know what? When you're in profit, when things are going your way, you do have to move your stop up. You have to trail your stop. That's once a day. So you do have to do 5 seconds once a day. But that's kind of fun, right? Because if you're moving your stop, if you're trailing it, you're making money. That's pretty awesome. So how much work are we talking about here? 152 seconds? I mean, I don't know. How much work? It's not a lot of work. It's more than index funds, I grant you. But if you just took turtle rules and put them in on a daily chart, it's hardly any work at all. Okay, so we're going to use those rules that have been around now for a long time, all right, online. But the turtle rules have been around for decades, and the turtles weren't the ones that made them up. They just became famous. So if they were in the early 80s and they were around before then, we're talking 40, 50 years, right? These rules have been around at least, maybe more. So we have rules that are unchanging for a long time. We have no research to do, no fundamental research, nothing. We made the rules simpler, okay? These unchanging rules that we're talking about. And, of course, I have a robot that does it all for you. Oh, now we're talking. A robot versus index funds, which takes less work? That's a pretty good battle, right? Yes, you have to put the software on your computer and you have to make sure your computer works. But is that different than a call to Vanguard? We'll argue that sometime. No, we won't, but think about it. So what do you get? Take these rules unchanging, what do you get? Well, let's use the euro dollar. Well, why the euro dollar? Well, isn't it the most famous currency pair? I mean, people have heard of the euro dollar that know nothing about trading. Maybe not all of them, but it's the most famous. It's the most liquid. It's one of the top action, volatility, volume currency pairs. That's why we use it. And it can go long and short because it doesn't matter. The euro's powerful. The dollar's powerful. There's no bias. You don't really get paid to hold it either way. It's a pretty good choice, right? It's a pretty good neutral choice. Okay. If you traded the euro dollar currency pair spot forex, both long and short, 10,000 turns into 28,644 over the same 10 years as the index fund we talked about. That's a lot more. It's almost double as far as profits, right? They made 10 turned into 18, so that's about 8,000, and 10 turned into 28, that's 18,000. So percentage-wise, it's not double, but profit-wise, it is double, right? It's more than that. Bottom line, 28,000 at the end is more than 18,000. Get it? Now, there's no research, right? We're not researching. We didn't make any changes except make it simpler. These rules have been around forever. Go read them again if you need to, and you can start doing this tomorrow. Think about that. There's nothing preventing you from just opening up a chart, setting up your buys and sells, and just going on with your life and being a trend follower. So very little work, and it beats the crud out of index funds. But I wanted to give that example to be as simple as possible. Can we do better than that? Well, I think so. I think a little tweaking of any system is fine. I'm not talking about major changes. I'm just talking about slight changes. For example, the turtles use the same rules for everything. Now, this me and you talking. Does that make sense? Honestly. Using the same rules on every currency pair, different traders, different countries, different economics. Why would you use the same rules on a currency pair that tends to trend and like crazy and then use the same rules on something that barely trends? It just stays in a range. It doesn't make sense. Everything is different. People are different. The algorithms are different. Everything is different. There's no really good reason to keep the rules the same, except for the fact that, well, if we keep them the same, we know we're not curve fitting. I don't want to talk about that. Okay. So I believe that a little tweaking is fine. So I tweaked the euro dollar a little over my research. This is probably about 2 years of research. I've been playing around, then watch a trade, then tweak it, then watch a trade. And frankly, I haven't tweaked it in a long time. I'd have been just watching a trade. And my tweak was I waited a little bit longer and I got out a little bit quicker. So we're not talking about major tweaks, okay? I'm just looking at the euro dollar and seeing if something might be a little better. The result of just a little tiny change, 10,000 turned into 37,000. Well, 37 at the end is more than 28, which is more than 18, right? All I had to do was change the trade size as the account went up, right? This is compounding. So when you get your trade sizing, and that's in the turtle rules, and they're right there to understand, and they're kind of confusing, but not bad. All you had to do is take your trade size and change it as your account went up. So you have $10,000 and you want to risk 5%, let's say. Nice even number, right? 5% I've found works really nicely in trend following, but you could do far less if you want. So if you only want to risk 5%, and so you say, okay, my stop is 50 pips away, so I'm going to risk one lot. I'm just making all this up. Of course, it's not one lot. It's a fraction of a lot. As your account goes up to 15,000, then you would have a little more trade size, a little higher trade size. And then as it went up to 20,000, you would have a little higher trade size, therefore keeping your risk per trade the same the whole way through. If you did that, that's how you'd make even more money, and that's how we got the 37,615. It wasn't fancy. It was just, as our account changed, we used the proper trade size to keep everything the same. Now, I built that robot, the aforementioned robot. It does it all for you. All you'd have to do is plug in the account size. So if you have a $10,000 account, you plug that in, you put your risk in, it's done. You have a $1,000 account, same thing. Plug in a $1,000 account size, risk, you're done. If you have now 15,000, you see what I'm saying. But that would be a very easy manual calculation also. So where are we at? The bottom line is this. If we just use rules that have been around, no tweaking, if we just use those rules that have been around forever, you can make more than an index fund. Think about that. Every expert says buy an index fund. Well, we have rules, nothing tricky about them. They've been around online, available for everyone. You can make a lot more money just by being a trend follower as opposed to index fund. And if you want to trust a little bit of research and a little bit of tweaking, guess what? You can make even more, right? As I said, you can get started on this tomorrow. Just get the turtle rules and get started. Start making more money than your index fund. Or you can buy my robot. It's not that expensive. Buy my robot course, whatever. You can get started right away for a small cost or no cost if you do it manually and beat the market. Pretty cool. All right, latest updates. That trend following course, of course, is online. It was available December 4th. Season 1 of my podcast is released. It's out now. SoundCloud, iTunes. It's called Beating the Market. We're over 960 now, working on 1 million. And there's the contact information. All right. It's great to be with you as always. I'll see you again next Thursday with a brand new video. Bye for now.